President Trump is signing is the rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others. Thank you, sir. Thank you. The second item, President Trump, is a regulatory freeze, as you announced in your speech, preventing bureaucrats from issuing any more regulations until we have full control of this, the government and this administration. Thank you, sir.
Sir, can I have a pen?
The next item, sir, is a freeze on all federal hiring, excepting the military and a number of other excluded categories, again, until full control of the government is achieved and we understand the objectives of government going forward.
Could you imagine Biden doing this? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Sir, the next item, as you announced in your speech, is a requirement that federal workers return to full-time in-person work immediately. Thank you, sir. Next, we have a directive to every department and agency in the federal government to address the cost of living crisis that has cost Americans so dearly. Thank you, sir. The next item here is the withdrawal from the Paris Climate Treaty. Yes, sir. We're going to save over $1 trillion by withdrawing from that treaty. And the next item, sir, is a letter that will be transmitted to the United Nations explaining that we are withdrawing from the Paris Climate Treaty. Thank you, sir. This next item is a directive to the federal government ordering the restoration of freedom of speech and preventing government censorship of free speech going forward. And lastly, sir, before we go back to the Oval Office to sign a large number of other items, is a directive to the federal government ending the weaponization of government against the political adversaries of the previous administration, as we've seen. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Marco.
You signed
Did you
TikTok
sign
order,
it,
right?
President?
Did you sign the TikTok order?
Yeah,
Yes, that was just
President Marco Rubio said yes.
just signed it.
How many
Still
times?
changing Venezuela.
Trump did all of this before 6 p.m. on day one. Pause to read 3 pages. We started a game we never got to finish. Play for blood, remember? I was just fooling about it. I wasn't.
I watched 8.5 hours of inauguration events today. Let me tell you everything I learned. First off, we're going to do a rapid fire list of the executive orders that we learned about today that Donald Trump will be implementing. He's designating cartels to be listed as foreign terrorist organizations. The people who were involved in J6, they're going to be released. The TikTok extension will be for 90 days while they try to negotiate a deal for 50% of TikTok. And he said if he doesn't get the approval for 50%, he could possibly implement tariffs on China to basically make them go into the deal. He wants to change the definition of birthright citizenship, rebuild the border wall, send more troops to the border, end catch and release, and declare a federal emergency at the border. Only male and female to be federally recognized, colorblind merit-based hiring instead of DEI, end federal censorship for free speech, withdrawing from the World Health Organization, protecting women from radical gender ideologies, which I'm assuming has something to do with sports. He didn't list that for sure. Revoking the Green New Deal, no mandates for electric cars, no more wind farms, national energy emergency, putting astronauts on Mars, withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord, and Alaska's energy release. He wants federal employees back in the office, an immediate hiring freeze while they, figure out all the things that are wrong in the federal government, except military and some other couple of areas, a hiring freeze with the IRS, implementing the Department of Government Efficiency Office, otherwise known as DOGE, no tax on tips, defeat inflation, tariffs, address the cost of living crisis with all federal agencies. And then he also mentioned something interesting. He started talking about the 88,000 IRS agents, but didn't finish his sentence. I don't know what he meant to say in that, but it had to do with the hiring freeze. So I'm assuming he was going to talk about firing them based on the conversation, but that is speculation from my side. He also rescinded 78 of Biden's executive orders. Now, I still have far more notes. That was just all of the notes that I have on his executive orders. So there is going to be a part 2, and I'll tell you all about those. I watched 8.5 hours of inauguration events today. I took a lot of notes. I learned a lot of things, and let me explain to you everything that I did learn. This is part 2 to this. In my first part, I told you about all the executive orders that Donald Trump signed today. In this part, I will tell you about some of his important comments that he made and some other things that I learned on the internet that I think that are important and imperative to this information. First off, Donald Trump said that he is not guaranteeing that TikTok will be around after 90 days. Today, he did sign the executive order to extend TikTok's ban out to 90 days. And he said that he wants to have that 50%, for the United States to have 50% ownership in TikTok. And if China wasn't going to agree to that he could possibly implement tariffs to kind of force their hand into that. He thinks it's a good deal for them because he said that somebody from TikTok's company, I'm going to say probably the CEO, but maybe not, again, that's just speculation, told him that without the United States, TikTok isn't valued much. So I think Donald Trump, as a businessman, will probably use that to his advantage. Trump alludes to the fact that he might help rebuild Gaza. He says that most of the people there have passed away and that it's great land in a great area, but it has been governed really poorly. He says that Elon will not be helping implement executive orders. He said that people who are in jail for J6 have done their time. He confirmed that we can expect the ICE raids. He did not say where and he did not say when. Trump said that he changed his mind on TikTok because he started to use it and realized, the benefits of the platform. He thinks we have bigger problems with all the other things that we have coming from China and that TikTok is not our biggest issue. And finally, he states that he thinks that the biggest factor towards inflation is energy. And that is why he signed a bunch of different executive orders, which would allow him to start utilizing the energy again in the United States.
So we've got two major executive orders from President Trump as they relate to climate and environment. Let's talk about the first one, which is removing the country from the Paris Climate Agreement. This is an agreement that pulls basically every country in the world together to work on the problem of climate change. Over the last 4 years, under the Biden administration, the U.S. has been the essential voice here on the world stage, leading these conversations. Now that seat at the table will be void, nations around the world, of course, the work is important. It will continue on whether the U.S. is there or not, but it certainly makes it harder. The second thing he did was declare a national energy emergency. To be clear, the U.S. now produces more energy, more oil and gas, more renewable energy than ever before. But what Trump is talking about really is drilling for more oil and gas. And this emergency resolution unlocks some powers to make the permitting process easier, to avoid the Clean Water Act, to avoid the Endangered Species Act, and make it easier to drill for oil and gas in this country.
Today is Trump's first full day back in office for his second term, and he has already signed several executive orders. There's one for the federal workplace that mandates all federal employees to return to in-work office 5 days a week, ending remote work arrangements. They also reinstated the Schedule F classification, potentially allowing the replacement of mid-level officials with political appointees. Another executive order signed focused around energy policy. This temporarily halted leasing and permitting for both onshore and offshore wind energy projects, directing a review of their environmental and economic impacts. He also signed an order for free speech protection. He issued an order prohibiting federal authorities from infringing on American citizens' free speech and initiated an investigation into potential violations during the previous administration. This is by no means going to be the end of the executive orders signed, even just today. Trump has promised to sign over 100 executive orders, many of which will probably be done today. As always, make sure to click the follow button, and I will see you on the next update.
Today, President Donald Trump has signed several executive orders that may impact the food industry as a whole and grocery prices. One of the key actions includes the imposition of tariffs on imported goods from Canada, Mexico, and China. While these measures aim to bolster domestic goods and production, they may also lead to increased costs of imported food items, which can reflect on the consumer end of things when you're grocery shopping. Now, in addition to that, President Trump has declared a national emergency in the energy sector. And what this basically is going to do is just take away the restrictions that's currently placed on oil and gas. While this move again is intended to be positive to lower energy costs, impact on the food industry, food production, and distribution is unknown. It's up in the air at this point. Now, lastly, Donald Trump is all sending immigrants back, send the Mexican back, but who works on the farms? Not to sound any kind of way, but the majority of people who work on farm are immigrants. So if you send all of them back, what's going to happen? And this will affect most likely grocery prices because there's not enough people on the farms working. So let's see. The full impact of these policies depends on how they're implemented. So we will see in the coming months. If you want full insights on this and how the executive orders are going to be affecting the food industry, you can look at my blog. I'm going to have a blog post about this in detail in a bit, along with Sites Sorted. Soon, shopping at farmers markets won't feel so expensive because everything will be around the same price. Bye.
This is everything that Trump has did since he's been in office. Let's look at it. He fired 1,500 rioters from the January 6th. We know that. Proposed to terminate recognition of automatic birthright citizenship. Withdrew the United States from the World Health Organization, WHO. Revoked the 2023 executive order signed by Joe Biden that sought to reduce the risk of artificial intelligence poses to consumers, workers, and national security. Shut down CBP-1, denying nearly 1 million migrants into the U.S. Revoke protections for transgender troops set by Joe Biden. The U.S. will only recognize two genders, male and female. Require federal workers to return to full-time in-person work. Withdrew the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement. Signed executive orders to boost energy production. Delayed TikTok ban for 75 days. And declared he renamed the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. It's been a busy day for Donald Trump. What do you think about this? Leave it in the comments and the polls.